You know you're living the good life when you think to yourself, you know what would make a good analogy for my sex life? Cleaning a toilet. And that's the position Christian mommy blogger Lori Alexander found herself in. In what seemed like a desperate plea for somebody to just pound her like a fucking pothole, she took to the YouTubes to deny the existence of marital rape and inadvertently open a horrifying window into the banality of her love life. I mean, in addition to the horrifying window you just naturally have to open to say, it's not even theoretically possible for my husband to rape me. So in a recent blog post, she reminded her readers that women have to have sex with their husbands even when they don't want to, because God says so. According to sexually frustrated husbands, anyway. And needless to say, the internet pushed back against that a bit. So she made a follow-up video where she explains that sex is just like any other chore, like cleaning a toilet. It doesn't matter if you want to do it, it just needs to get done. And as if you weren't already feeling sorry enough for her vagina, she adds a quick bit at the end where she says, and I quote, "We," that's crazy people, I think, "live our lives by doing what's right, by obeying God, even when we don't feel like it. Yes, and that even includes sex. You know, how long does it really take?" End quote. And look, I'm not usually a fan of this bitch just needs a good deep dickin' argument, but I'm inclined to make an exception in Lori's case. Unless you think to yourself, Lucinda, Lori Alexander is just some crazy extremist on the internet with no real power. Our second story will remind you that crazy extremists still make the rules. We've talked a lot on this show about the Catholic Church efforts to subvert reproductive rights by buying up all the hospitals and taking contraceptive care off the menu. Well, a recent investigative report from Rewire.News offered up a pretty jaw-dropping view in how far they're willing to go to enforce that. So the story highlights a hospital in Waterloo, Iowa, that had what they called the sin room, which was basically a few office buildings next to the hospital or adjacent to it where doctors rented space that wasn't entirely controlled by the hospital itself. Then they take patients into these facilities if they say, I don't know, needed an IUD or a prescription for contraception. So they basically carved out a fucking door behind a bookcase where they could be for real doctors. Well, unfortunately, the Catholics found out about it. And now they're hard at work closing the loopholes that allow this team of concerned doctors to ignore their dogmatic bullshit. But lest I leave you depressed here, let me close on a quick nugget of good news. Professional misogynist Steve Cooking Can Be Fun Anderson put up a YouTube video the day before yesterday bragging about how much fun he was going to have on his upcoming trip to the Netherlands. And then the Netherlands told him to go fuck himself and barred him from entering the country, citing his open celebration of the Pulse nightclub massacre. So if you got a pen and map at home for the nations where Steve Anderson isn't allowed, you can now add the Netherlands to the pins you have for South Africa, the UK, Jamaica, and Botswana. And not to get too far ahead of myself here, but he's scheduled to be in Sweden and Ireland on the same trip, so you might want to have a couple pins ready for those ones too. And on that note, I'll hand things back over to Noah, Heath, and Eli.